The night my family tried to hand me a bill worth more than my first car was the same night I finally realized they had never invited me to dinner. They had invited my wallet. My name is Claire Bennett. I am 32 years old, and I manage operations for several busy restaurants across Tennessee. Every day I deal with budgets, inventory, staffing problems, vendor contracts, and customer complaints. Numbers do not intimidate me. Difficult conversations do not scare me. Yet when my mother texted me after 3 years of complete silence and asked if I would join the family for a small dinner to reconnect, I felt like a little girl again. The message seemed warm and sincere. She said she and my father had spent a lot of time reflecting on the past. She said life was too short for old grudges. She said it would be just the four of us, my parents, my younger sister Emily, and me. Then she ended the message with a sentence I had heard my entire life. Family takes care of family. Most people would probably find those words comforting. For me, they sounded like a warning. Growing up, those words always meant the same thing. Family takes care of family really meant Claire takes care of everyone else. When the electric bill was overdue, I helped. When my father needed money for repairs, I helped. When Emily needed rent, a security deposit, wedding expenses, or emergency cash, I helped. I became the solution to every financial problem before I was even old enough to legally rent a car. 3 years earlier, everything had finally fallen apart. Emily had decided she wanted to open a trendy cafe. She had no business plan, no experience, and no understanding of how restaurants actually worked. But she had a dream, and my parents expected me to co-sign a $75,000 loan for it. When I asked basic questions about expenses and projections, they acted as if I had insulted her personally. My father became furious. My mother accused me of abandoning my sister. The conversation ended with my father pointing toward the door and telling me that if I refused to help, I was no longer part of the family. The next day, I was removed from every group chat. Nobody called. Nobody texted. Nobody reached out. 3 years of silence followed, so when my mother suddenly invited me to dinner, I should have known better. Still, part of me missed them. Not the manipulation. Not the guilt. I missed the family I wished they had been. I missed believing that maybe one day things could be different. That hope lasted exactly until I pulled into the restaurant parking. But the reservation was supposedly for 4 people. Counted 9 vehicles belonging to relatives. Stomach tightened immediately. Inside, the hostess guided me toward a private dining area. The moment I turned the corner, I understood everything. 16 people sat around a massive table, my parents, my sister, aunts, uncles, cousins, even people I barely recognized. The table looked like a celebration. Lobster tails covered serving trays. Expensive steaks filled oversized platters. Bottles of premium wine were already half empty. The bill was going to be enormous. Everyone suddenly cheered when they saw me. My mother rushed over with open arms. There were hugs, applause, fake, smiles, a performance worthy of an award ceremony. Sat down because every eye in the room was watching me. Within minutes, I noticed something strange. Nobody asked how I had been. Nobody apologized for disappearing from my life. Nobody acknowledged the 3 years that had passed. Instead, the conversation kept drifting toward money. People joked about how successful I must be. They commented on my career. They mentioned expensive restaurants. They talked about financial struggles. Each remark seemed innocent on its own. Together, they felt coordinated, like pieces of a script. The longer I sat there, the clearer it became that this dinner was not about reconciliation. It was about positioning me. Then something happened that removed all doubt. About 40 minutes into the meal, I excused myself and headed toward the restroom. While washing my hands, I noticed a phone sitting beside the sink. It belonged to Emily. The screen was lit. I was not trying to snoop. But a notification appeared at the top. The group chat was called Dinner Plan. The preview showed a message from my mother. Do not tell Claire everyone is coming. She will not say no if the whole family is watching. My heart stopped. Picked up the phone and read the conversation. Every suspicion I had was confirmed. For weeks they had planned the evening. They discussed how to pressure me. They coordinated invitations. They specifically ordered expensive food before I arrived. Then, I found the message that changed everything. Dad wrote, Claire can cover us for months. She has more than enough money, Mom replied. She should be grateful we are giving her another chance. With the family. I stared at the screen. Not one message mentioned missing me. Not one message mentioned rebuilding our relationship. The entire dinner existed for one reason. They wanted my money. I returned the phone exactly where I found it. Then I looked in the mirror. For the first time in my life, I felt completely calm. The old version of me would have paid. The old version of me would have cried privately. Afterward, the old version of me would have called it love. That woman was gone. When I returned to the table, I simply observed my father kept ordering food. Mother kept smiling. My relatives kept dropping hints. Eventually, dessert arrived. Then, my father finally said what everyone had been waiting to. Here, he folded his hands and looked directly at me. You are paying tonight, right? You owe us that much. The room went silent. 16 people watched me for years. That pressure would have worked. Not anymore. I smiled politely and stood from my chair. Let me take care of something first. Everyone relaxed. Immediately, they thought they had won. I walked toward the service station where a young waiter was organizing receipts quietly. I introduced myself. Then I said 2 simple sentences. I am not paying for that table. Please bring the bill to the man who made the reservation and place the card on file. The waiter blinked. I continued. Put my sparkling water on a separate check. Add a generous tip for yourself. He nodded. I paid immediately. Then, I returned to the table and waited. 10 minutes. Later, the check arrived. Directly. In front of my father, the conversation stopped. Instantly. Confusion spread across the table. My father opened the folder. His smile disappeared. Still trying to maintain control, he handed over his credit card. A few minutes later, the waiter returned. Sir, I am sorry. The card was declined. Nobody moved. My father ordered him to try again. Declined a second card. Declined. A third card. Declined. Silence became unbearable. The confident man who had spent the entire evening showing off suddenly looked terrified. Then he looked at me. For the first time all night, the performance disappeared. Claire, please. Those 2 words almost broke my heart. Almost. Then he added another sentence. You are really going to let this happen? And there it was. Even in that moment, he was still asking for money. Not forgiveness. Not connection. Money. I looked around the table. 16 people. Empty. Plates, empty wine bottles, shocked faces. Then I answered, I'm sorry if you are struggling, truly, but this was not a request for help. This was a setup. My mother immediately started crying. My sister became angry. Several relatives tried to defend them. I let them talk. When they finally stopped, I spoke one last time. If you had asked honestly, I would have listened. If you needed financial guidance, I would have helped. If you wanted a relationship, we could have started rebuilding one. But you invited me here to pay a bill. That is not family. That is manipulation. Nobody had a response. I picked up my purse. Before leaving, I looked directly at my mother. You always said, family takes care of family. Tell me something? Why was I the only one who ever did? The room remained silent. I walked out. No dramatic exit. No shouting. No tears. Just peace. Outside, warm summer air filled the parking lot. I sat in my car for several minutes before starting the engine. My phone was already exploding with messages, accusations, complaints, demands. I ignored every one of them. Then, I left the family group chat permanently. The weeks afterward revealed the truth. My father had lost his business. Parents were drowning in debt. Emily needed money. Again, their situation was sad, but it was not my responsibility. I even offered to help them meet with a financial counselor. My father refused. Because what they wanted was not help. They wanted a rescue, and they expected me to provide it. That night taught me something I should have learned years earlier. Helping someone is a choice. Being related to someone does not create an unlimited financial obligation. Love is not measured by how much money you sacrifice. Real family values you even when you have nothing to give. As I drove home, I realized something strange. For the first time in my entire life, I was not carrying anyone else's burden. The silence in my car felt different. It belonged to me. And that was the moment I finally understood what freedom sounded like.